Hi, responding to something C1, thoughts about anarchy. I believe that's the title of the video. I will link that to the bottom. I will link that in the bottom of this video. I believe your first point, it was kind of rambly. I don't think I can address every point, but I ramble too, so yeah. Have fun with this. I believe your first point was that you believe that statism cannot be related to religion in the same way that many anarchists and anti-statists present anti-statism to atheists. The argument goes like the state demands ideological support and cannot stand on its own without ideological support, therefore it does not exist as a real world entity. And considering that states, hi cat, and speaking of God, and considering that states use many of the same indoctrination techniques to support this ideology as religions do to support their ideologies and a belief in their particular gods, then religion and statism are essentially the same thing. And I actually go for this argument. Now, I'm sure people can get into specific points. For example, a state, even though it depends on ideological support to exist, does exist in the real world. That is to say, these fiat land claims, these forced associations, like just because where I was born, I am now American and forced to live under the laws of this humongous land claim called America. I mean, I just happen to be forced to do that. Of course, there's the option of moving to another huge fiat land claim, but really, is that a very viable option? No. That's kind of like, do you want to sit down in the shit you know, or move to another pile of shit that you don't know and sit down in that? So, but basically, a state is forced association, in that you and I are both happen to be American, not because we agreed to it, not because we moved anywhere called America. We just kind of were born here and expected to behave in certain ways because we were born here. I didn't sign a social contract. Did you? Yeah, so, yeah. Like last time I checked, I don't remember signing a social contract. In fact, my parents didn't even sign a social contract. But that's a whole nother issue. But, so, yeah. But a religion can also work as a forced association. For example, the Islam, as I understand it, is the only religion that's really growing right now. And that's just because Muslims are having children and indoctrinating their children, not because they have a lot of converts coming in. And in this sense, you have a lot of people born into societies where from day one they are indoctrinated by the same people that they imprint on, by the same people that are feeding them and clothing them and touching them, showing them affection and warmth and love, but they're also showing them this very, strange set of beliefs of this entity in the sky named Allah, that if you don't obey these certain rules, you're going to get sent to this place of eternal punishment. Yeah. So, in a way, this association with a person's religion is not, I mean, it may or may not be done through force of arms. It may be done through this strange force of indoctrination where, well, you're 18, you can leave home, da 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 da. Even in the United States, there are situations where people are 18, they leave home, da 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 da, but even if they have consciously deconverted, they're still having nightmares about hell and the end of the world and all that because they're horrible, horrible parents. They didn't just say, oh, there's a guy in the sky who loves you, whatever, and if you're good, you go to heaven, da 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 da. I mean, their parents really did take time to indoctrinate them with one hand and then feed them with the other. I mean, it's really insidious. So when a person's 18 and they leave home and maybe they officially deconverted, how voluntary is it though if they, for whatever reason, reconvert or something? I mean, how voluntary is the association with religion? In fact, even for myself, I've decided that even if I'm not religious in the literal sense of believing in magical entities, there is something that religious ritual can do for me. There is something inside me that wants to believe. So I'm not going to associate with you as if there's this certain pantheon of gods that exists, but that doesn't mean that in my own mental world they don't exist. They do, even if they don't exist in reality. So you could technically say that I'm delusional. So, you conflate state with government. There's lots of people do this. It's a very common mistake. There are lots of different options as to how to govern without this land claim that isn't based on actually maintaining and caring for the land and actually using it for something. As it stands now, what, quote, governments do is rule over the people who are maintaining the land and using it to produce. But you can have, for example, people who are using this land to produce things and actually maintaining and taking care of the land and their homes, getting together and voting on things. And you can have systems of government where if you're an adult, you can vote. If you're a member of that community or something like that, or you can have something a little less communal where you could have something that would amount to landlords, but if your landlord screws up, maybe you don't have to pay them or something. Shit, this is just off the top of my head. You can have any number of systems that aren't based on an overarching political class that doesn't maintain or take care of the actual land, but yet somehow rules over it through force of arms. I mean, personally, I'm into private property and market anarchism, but I'm not going to force my preferences on people who want to try out something more communal. Just don't force those preferences on me and we'll be good. So, let's see. The private defense firms and the free rider problem. Well, this is interesting because person A and person C is paying for their, private defense, and it's not taxation, they're choosing to pay, and so knowing that they can lose the pay, the private defense firms are actually serving the people, keeping them safe, actually serving and protecting, right? Instead of serving and protecting a political class, right? So they're doing pretty good. Person B, because he's in between these two, he gets the defense services without having to pay, and because resources are limited, especially in a situation where you're dealing with private defense, that's kind of a resource heavy endeavor, right? Person B is not contributing to the quality of the defense and yet is still getting defended. On the one hand, I mean, actually, I would say that I actually would have interest in paying for one or two free riders that live in close proximity to me, rather than being forced to pay for one monopolistic defense force over a huge overarching area where I'm being forced to pay for everybody else. I would rather be forced through circumstances to pay for, Susie, Dick, and Harry, who are the neighborhood mooches, rather than being forced to pay for everybody. And I realize maybe I realize it's a false dichotomy. You're either going to pay for some mooches, or you're going to live in under this monopolistic police force under a state. I realize that, but considering the situation that I would like to live under, I think it would be by far much more livable than living under a state. And keep in mind, the state that you and I live under is actually one of the more livable ones. So it's kind of like a situation of, would you rather reluctantly end up vicariously defending a couple of mooches, or would you want to pay for everybody? And interestingly, just as the several mooches would benefit from having the people around them defended, you would benefit from having the mooches defended in a weird sort of way, because let's say person B and person D are actually mooching off A and C, and let's say you're A and I'm C, then we don't want person B's property to be overrun with thugs, and we don't want person D's property to become some sort of crack house or something, but which would be much less bad if drugs are actually legal, but that's a whole different, drug prohibition doesn't work. You and I probably both agree on that, but anyway, so, yeah, I mean, I'd rather a few free riders than everybody weighing everyone else down, basically. So it's kind of like forced to pay for a couple of moochers via the situation, and keep in mind you'll have more control over that situation, or just forced through arms to pay for everybody. And even in the situation with moochers, there is the option of actually going to speak with the individuals, or having a private arbitration firm, help people to, in a particular area, come to an agreement, even if you don't want to live in an area that does essentially tax people. You could have some sort of contractual obligation where, okay, we recognize you don't have the money to pay, but we don't like you mooching, so let's see if you can do something else to help the defense. For example, we know you don't have the money to pay for this year's defense bill under any of the services. Would it then be possible for you to buy new, buy new uniforms for these people for this year, because it is something that they need, and you would be contributing, if even in a small bit, so you wouldn't be entirely mooching or something. I mean, there are options with a few moochers in a particular small land claim versus what we have now. Okay, so that's my thoughts on the whole private defense firm free rider thing. Hope this wasn't too rambly. So, okay, and of course, everyone is very welcome to respond, whether it's whether you're Stargazer or individual autonomy, or hell, even fringe elements. You want to respond? Cool. I mean, have at it. Alright, and that's about it. And I'm not showing my face because I look like crap right now, so don't think I'm trying to be artistic or something, because I'm not. Okay, so hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you guys soon.